The alarm screamed through the monitoring station, and Commander Thex jerked awake from his half-sleep. His four eyes blinked rapidly as he stared at the detection screen. Something was out there in the empty space between stars. Something that shouldn't exist. "Status report," Thex barked into his communicator, his scaled fingers dancing across the control panel. "Sir, we have a contact. Sector 97 Alpha. The signature is wrong," his junior officer replied, confusion clear in his voice. Thex pulled up the data. His blood went cold. The object was moving at speeds that violated every known principle of space travel. No ship in the galaxy could accelerate like that. Not the Valdran Empire's finest warships, not even the experimental vessels hidden in the military secret shipyards. "Run a diagnostic. This has to be a sensor malfunction," Thex said, but his voice lacked confidence. 3 minutes passed. The diagnostics came back clean. The impossible object was still there, still accelerating, still real. "Sir, it just changed course," the junior officer whispered. That changed everything. Sensor ghosts didn't change course. Space debris didn't execute precision maneuvers. Whatever this thing was, someone was controlling it. Thex immediately opened a priority channel to Fleet Command. Within minutes, his screen filled with the stern face of Fleet Admiral Cora, her silver scales gleaming under the harsh lights of her command deck. "This better be worth my time." "Commander," Cora said coldly. "Ma'am, we have an unidentified vessel in Sector 97 Alpha. It's moving at velocities that exceed our maximum theoretical speeds by 40%, and it's under intelligent control." Cora's expression shifted from annoyance to interest. "Show me." Thex transmitted the data. He watched Cora's eyes widen slightly, the only sign of emotion the iron-willed admiral ever showed. "How long until it reaches the outer markers?" Cora asked. "At current acceleration, 18 hours. I'm dispatching Battle Group 7 to intercept. Keep tracking it. Report any changes immediately." The channel closed. Thex sat back in his chair, staring at the impossible signature on his screen. In 300 years, the Valdran Empire had encountered 23 different spacefaring species. Some had submitted peacefully. Others had fought and lost. But all of them had used technology the Valdran could understand. Engines that followed the rules of physics. This was different. Dr. Vane arrived at the station 4 hours later, summoned from the capital world by emergency shuttle. The elderly scientist shuffled to Thex's station, her walking stick clicking against the metal floor. "Show me this impossibility," she said without greeting. Thex pulled up the complete sensor logs. Vane studied them in silence, her three-fingered hands occasionally reaching out to manipulate the data. Minutes stretched into an hour. "Well?" Thex finally asked. "This is genuine," Vane said softly. "Whatever that is, it's using a propulsion system completely unknown to our science. No plasma exhaust, no gravitational distortion, no tachyon emissions. It's as if the ship is simply deciding to be somewhere else and the universe is agreeing. That's impossible. So is the data, and yet here we are." Vane turned to face him. "Commander, in my 70 years of studying xenotechnology, I've never seen anything that frightened me. I'm frightened now." Battle Group 7 arrived at the intercept coordinates with 6 hours to spare. Thex watched on his long-range sensors as the pride of the Valdran military took up formation. 1 dreadnought, 4 cruisers, and 12 frigates. Enough firepower to conquer a small star system. The unknown vessel emerged from the darkness right on schedule. Thex enhanced the image, and for the first time he saw the mysterious ship clearly. It was small. Laughably small compared to the dreadnought. Its hull was smooth and gray, covered in strange markings that might have been writing. The design was odd, with none of the elegant curves of Valdran engineering or the brutal angles of Kresh warships. It looked functional, purposeful, and utterly alien. Admiral Cora's voice came over the open channel, translated into the 23 known languages and broadcast on all standard frequencies. "Unknown vessel. You have entered Valdran space without authorization. Identify yourself immediately or be fired upon." Silence. Cora waited the standard 30 seconds, then nodded to her weapons officer. A plasma bolt lanced out from one of the cruisers, deliberately missing the strange ship by a comfortable margin. A warning shot, nothing more. The alien vessel jinked sideways so fast that Thex's sensors briefly lost track of it. One moment it was in the plasma bolt's path, the next it was 3,000 kilometers away. No ship could maneuver like that. The forces involved would crush any crew into paste. What in the ancestors' names? Cora breathed. The unknown ship began transmitting. The signal was audio and visual, using electromagnetic radiation in a format that was almost standard but not quite. The station's computers struggled to decode it. A face appeared on the screens. Thex leaned forward, studying it carefully. The creature was bipedal, with two eyes positioned front-facing like a predator. Its skin was smooth and varied in color, and it had hair growing only from the top of its head. It looked disturbingly similar to several known species, yet fundamentally different. The creature spoke in a language no one had ever heard. The words were harsh and quick, full of sounds that seemed to come from deep in its throat. The computers worked frantically to find patterns, to match anything in their vast linguistic databases. Finally, after 5 attempts, the translation software produced something approximating meaning. This is UNSC determination. Stand clear. Peaceful mission. Request communication protocols. Dr. Vane grabbed Thex's arm hard enough to hurt. UNSC, that's an acronym. A political organization. This isn't just a ship, Commander. This is a government. On the view screen, Admiral Cora was staring at the alien face with an expression Thex had never seen before on her. Uncertainty. The creature on the screen seemed to be waiting for a response. Its eyes moved, tracking something off-screen, and it spoke to someone else in its incomprehensible language. Then it looked directly at the camera again and made a gesture that might have been a greeting or a warning. The computers translated the final words. This is the UNSC determination. Stand clear. Thex felt a chill run down his spine. In those 3 simple words there was no fear, no hesitation, no submission. Just a calm statement of fact from someone who believed they had the right to be here, in Valdran space, moving at impossible speeds with impossible technology. The Empire had just encountered something new, something that didn't know it should be afraid, something that might have good reason not to be. Captain Sarah Chen studied the massive warships arrayed before her vessel and felt her stomach tighten. The Determination was a good ship, fast and well-armed by human standards, but it looked like a minnow surrounded by sharks. They fired at us, Lieutenant Marcus Webb said from the tactical station, his voice carefully neutral. They missed on purpose, Sarah replied. That was a warning shot. They're following first contact protocols, just not ours. The translation software finally achieved a breakthrough, decoding enough of the alien language to establish basic communication. The face on the main screen belonged to what the computer identified as a Valdran, apparently the dominant species in this region of space. Sarah activated her own transmission, speaking slowly and clearly. I am Captain Sarah Chen of the United Nations Space Command vessel Determination. We are explorers from Earth, conducting a peaceful survey mission. We mean no harm and request permission to open diplomatic communications. The Valdran Admiral's response came quickly, translated into stilted English by their respective computers. You have violated Valdran territorial space. By Imperial law, all unknown vessels must submit to inspection and accept standard protocols. You will power down your engines and allow boarding parties to examine your technology. You will sign treaty documents acknowledging Valdran authority. You will provide tribute as payment for this violation. Sarah exchanged glances with Marcus. They'd studied hundreds of first contact scenarios during their training. Most involved cultural misunderstandings, communication difficulties, or fear of the unknown. Very few involved immediate demands for submission. With respect, Admiral, Earth does not recognize unilateral territorial claims over open space. We're willing to negotiate agreements and establish peaceful relations, but we cannot submit to inspection or acknowledge authority we don't recognize. The alien admiral's face showed an expression that the computer tagged as confusion mixed with disbelief. When she spoke again, her tone suggested she was explaining something to a child. Perhaps you do not understand your situation. The Valdran Empire controls 47 star systems. Our military is the most powerful in this sector of the galaxy. Every species we have encountered has accepted our terms. You are one small ship facing a battle group. Compliance is not optional. Sarah kept her voice calm and diplomatic. Admiral, we understand you're accustomed to a certain response. But humanity has a saying, we don't kneel well. We're happy to establish trade, exchange knowledge, and build friendship. But we won't submit to demands backed by threats. The channel closed abruptly. Marcus pulled up tactical data. Captain, 7 vessels are breaking formation. Looks like they're moving to surround us. Time to intercept? 4 minutes at their current speed. Sarah made a decision. Helm, bring us about. Prepare evasion pattern Delta 7. Marcus, bring defensive systems online but do not target their ships. I want non-lethal countermeasures only. Captain, if they're serious about boarding us, then we show them exactly who they're dealing with. Without killing anyone, execute. The Determination spun gracefully on its axis and accelerated. The Valdran vessels tried to match the maneuver, but they moved like cargo haulers compared to the human frigate's dancer-like precision. Sarah's ship slipped through the forming net like water through fingers. 3 Valdran frigates pursued. Their engines burned bright as they attempted to close the distance. Sarah watched them come, measuring speeds and vectors with practiced ease. They're faster than they look, Marcus observed, but not faster than us. Helm, execute Epsilon, turn on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark. The Determination flipped end over end while maintaining forward velocity, a maneuver that violated everything the Valdran knew about physics. The pursuing frigates scattered in confusion, unable to predict where their target would be. Captain, the lead frigate is powering weapons, Marcus warned. Countermeasures, Sarah ordered. The Determination released a spread of specialized drones. They weren't weapons in the traditional sense. Instead, they emitted carefully calibrated electromagnetic pulses, targeted specifically at the power distribution systems the ship's sensors had mapped during the initial encounter. 3 Valdran frigates went dark simultaneously, not destroyed, not damaged in any permanent way, just shut down like someone had flipped a switch. They drifted in space, life support still functioning, but engines and weapons completely offline. The Valdran formation froze. Sarah could imagine the confusion on their command decks, the frantic damage reports, the growing realization that they'd just been defeated without a single shot fired. She opened a channel to the Valdran Admiral. Admiral, we've disabled 3 of your vessels using non-lethal methods. Your crews are unharmed and life support remains operational. We did this to demonstrate that we have the capability to defend ourselves without causing casualties. Please believe me when I say we want peace, not conflict. The Admiral's face appeared on screen again. Her expression had changed completely. The confident superiority was gone, replaced by something harder to read. Shock, maybe, or the first hint of fear. What are you? The Admiral asked, her voice barely above a whisper. We're humans, Admiral. We're explorers and scientists, but we're also survivors. Earth taught us to be ready for anything. We've been traveling the stars for over 300 years, and we've learned to be very good at protecting ourselves. 300 years? The Admiral's translator struggled with her tone. Your technology? It's impossible. It's just different, Sarah said gently. We developed along different paths, solved different problems. We're not your enemies, Admiral. We'd like to be your friends if you'll let us. Dr. Vane's voice suddenly burst through on the Valdran command frequency, overriding protocols in her urgency. Admiral Cora, I've analyzed the engagement data. The human vessel was holding back, significantly. Energy signatures suggest their actual combat capacity is at least 10 times what they just demonstrated. They're showing us mercy. Sarah saw the Admiral process this information, saw the moment when pride and shock gave way to calculation. The Admiral had been in command long enough to know when she was beaten. Captain Chen, Cora said formally, you are free to leave Valdran space. We will not interfere with your departure. Thank you, Admiral. Before we go, I'd like to transmit a data package. It contains information about humanity, our history, our territory, our capabilities, and our desire for peaceful relations. We hope you'll review it and consider opening diplomatic channels. Cora hesitated, then nodded. Transmit your data. Sarah signaled Marcus, who sent the prepared package. It contained carefully selected information, enough to show that humanity was established and powerful, not so much that it revealed strategic vulnerabilities. The art of diplomacy in a dangerous galaxy. The Determination began moving away from the Valdran formation, accelerating smoothly toward the edge of their territorial space. Sarah let herself relax slightly, hoping the worst was over. She was wrong. 2 hours later, as the Determination approached the border markers, long-range sensors detected a new formation of Valdran ships moving to intercept. This time there were more of them, and they were already powering weapons. Looks like someone up the chain of command made a different decision, Marcus said grimly. Sarah's hand tightened on her command chair's armrest. She'd hoped to avoid this. She'd tried everything to prevent it. But some people only understood one language, Battle stations, she ordered quietly. This time we do whatever's necessary to get home. No more mercy shots. The second engagement was about to begin, and Sarah knew it would change everything. The Grand Executor Vren sat in the Imperial Council chamber, surrounded by the holographic projections of the Empire's highest military commanders. The mood was tense, almost panicked, though none of them would admit it. One ship, Vren said, his voice dangerously soft. A single small vessel defeated part of Battle Group 7 without firing a single lethal shot. Explain this to me. Admiral Cora stood at attention, her scales pale with stress. Grand Executor, the human technology is beyond anything in our databases. Their maneuverability, their electronic warfare capabilities, their sensors, we have no counter for any of it. So you let them go. I made a tactical decision to avoid further losses until we understood what we were facing. Vren's claws scraped against the stone armrest of his throne. And what did we learn from the data they so generously provided? Dr. Vane stepped forward, her aged hands trembling slightly. Grand Executor, the humans claim to have been spacefaring for over 3 centuries. Their data package shows a species that has colonized multiple systems and developed technology specifically designed for conflict. Are you saying they're warriors? I'm saying their entire technological development seems focused on survival and defense. Every system on their ship has redundancies and countermeasures. They think like prey animals that evolved into predators. Then they can be beaten. Vren stood, his full height impressive even among his own kind. We will not allow a single unknown species to challenge 300 years of Valdran dominance. We will show them the price of defiance. Admiral Cora spoke carefully. Grand Executor, I strongly advise against aggressive action until we know more about their true capabilities. Your advice is noted and dismissed. The human ship is still in our territory, still subject to our laws. We will take it intact for study. I want their technology, their weapons, their engines, and I want their captain to understand that the Valdran Empire does not tolerate insults. Cora bowed, knowing argument was useless. Within the hour, 20 warships were racing toward the Determination's projected course. With orders to disable and capture the human vessel by any means necessary, Commander Thex watched the pursuit unfold from his monitoring station. He'd requested permission to observe, citing his role in the initial detection. In truth, he wanted to witness what he suspected would be the end of Valdran arrogance. The human ship detected the Valdran force long before visual contact. Instead of running, instead of trying to escape, the Determination simply stopped and waited. Confident, Thex muttered, or suicidal. The Valdran ship spread into an envelopment formation, cutting off all escape routes. Their commander, a veteran named Thrace, broadcast the standard demand for surrender. The human response was immediate and clear. This is your last warning. We will defend ourselves. Stand down and let us pass. Thrace gave the order to fire. What happened next would be studied in military academies for years to come, though the Valdran Empire would not exist long enough to teach those lessons. The Determination moved before the first plasma bolts completed half their journey. The human ship didn't dodge so much as simply wasn't where the weapons fire arrived. Its point defense systems came online, revealing a network of small, fast-tracking weapons that intercepted incoming fire with terrifying precision. How are they tracking that fast? Someone gasped over the command channel. Then the Determination fired back. The human weapons were different from anything the Valdran had seen. No plasma, no energy beams. Instead, solid projectiles moving at a significant fraction of light speed, each one guided by micro-adjustments mid-flight. They punched through Valdran shields like they weren't there and struck with surgical precision. A frigate's engine array exploded. Not the whole ship, just the engines. The vessel went dark, drifting but intact. A cruiser's weapon systems sparked and failed. Every gun, every missile tube, every energy projector disabled in a single coordinated strike. The dreadnought leading the formation took 6 hits across its command deck. Bridge and primary control centers. The massive ship went silent, its crew unharmed but completely unable to fight. The entire engagement lasted 4 minutes and 17 seconds. 7 Valdran warships disabled, their crews alive but their vessels completely neutralized. The Determination suffered 0 damage, not a scratch, not a single hit that its defenses couldn't handle. The human ship broadcast one final message, then accelerated away at speeds that made the Valdran vessels look like they were standing still. Analysis. Commander Thrace croaked from his damaged dreadnought. His pride shattered along with his ship's systems. His science officer took several tries to speak. Sir? They were holding back. Again. Weapon signatures suggest they have munitions with at least 10 times the yield they used. They deliberately chose non-lethal targeting. They could have killed us all in the opening seconds. Dr. Vane, listening from the capital world, closed her eyes. She'd suspected, but hearing it confirmed made it real. The humans hadn't been fighting. They'd been demonstrating, showing the Valdrin exactly how outmatched they were while carefully avoiding casualties. It was the most terrifying form of mercy she could imagine. Grand Executor Vren received the reports in stunned silence. 7 more ships disabled, 0 human casualties, a demonstration of technological superiority so complete that it made the Empire look like primitive savages throwing rocks at a starship. They're toying with us, he said finally. No, Grand Executor, Dr. Vane replied via hologram. They're trying not to kill us. There's a difference. I don't accept that. I don't accept that one species, one that we've never even heard of, can simply appear and render 300 years of military development obsolete. Your acceptance is irrelevant to reality. Vren's eyes narrowed dangerously. You forget yourself, Doctor. I forget nothing. I'm simply old enough not to care about politics when survival is at stake. Vane pulled up tactical data, highlighting specific details. Look at their engagement patterns. They targeted engines, weapons, control systems. They went out of their way to preserve life. This is a species that has rules about warfare, that values life even in their enemies. But make no mistake, Grand Executor, they are warriors, skilled, experienced, and vastly more advanced than we are. Then we find their homeworld and strike it before they can threaten us further. That would be suicide. That would be survival. If one ship can do this, imagine what their full military could do. We cannot allow them to become a threat. We must strike now, strike hard, and eliminate them before they eliminate us. Admiral Cora spoke up, her voice hollow. Grand Executor, we don't even know where their homeworld is. The data package they transmitted. It must contain location information. Dr. Vane nodded slowly. It does. They call it Earth. The coordinates are clearly marked. Then we have what we need. Vren stood, his decision made. Mobilize the entire war fleet. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier. We will assemble the largest military force in our history, and we will strike at this Earth with everything we have. We will show these humans what happens when they challenge the Valdrin Empire. The council chamber fell silent. Every commander present understood what this meant. Total war against an unknown enemy. A gamble with the Empire's future. Admiral Cora bowed deeply. It will take 6 weeks to assemble the full fleet and reach their coordinates. Then you have 6 weeks. Use them well. As the commanders filed out to begin preparations, Dr. Vane remained behind. You're making a mistake, she said quietly. No, Vren replied. I'm ensuring our survival. They showed us mercy twice. They won't get a third chance. They showed mercy because they value life. You're about to attack the homeworld of a species that has been perfecting warfare for thousands of years. A species that went to the stars specifically because they learned how to destroy themselves and chose not to. You're going to poke a sleeping predator, Grand Executor. And I don't think you understand what will wake up. Vren dismissed her with a wave. 6 weeks. Then we'll see who the real predators are. Admiral Richard Zhao was drinking coffee in his office aboard the orbital defense station Guardian Prime when the long-range sensors detected the incoming fleet. He set down his cup very carefully, watching the numbers climb on his display. 842 ships. Well, he said quietly, that's unfortunate. His communications officer looked pale. Sir, should I sound the general alarm? Not yet. First, let's see what they want. Zhao pulled up the tactical display, studying the formation. It was impressive by any standard. Massive dreadnoughts, dozens of cruisers, hundreds of support vessels. The entire military might of an interstellar empire, all heading straight for Earth. Captain Chen had filed her report 3 weeks ago. Zhao had read it carefully, noting her assessment that the Valdrin were dangerous primarily because they didn't know any better. They'd been the strongest power in their region for so long that they'd forgotten what real strength looked like. Now they were about to learn. Sound the alarm, Zhao ordered. Bring the Earth Defense Force to full readiness. Activate all orbital platforms, wake up the reserve fleet, and get me a channel to the approaching vessels. Klaxons wailed across Earth and its orbital infrastructure. Ships that had been in standby mode powered up. Defense platforms that looked like asteroids unfolded into weapons arrays. Soldiers who'd been on leave reported to their stations. The entire system shifted from peace to war footing in less than 20 minutes. Humanity had practice at this. The Valdran fleet emerged from their faster-than-light transit at the edge of Earth's solar system. Grand Executor Vren stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, expecting to see a primitive world with perhaps a few orbital stations. What he saw instead made his blood freeze. The system was covered in structures. Orbital platforms surrounded Earth like a shell. The moon bristled with installations. Mars had clearly been terraformed. The asteroid belt contained what looked like shipyards. And ships. There were hundreds of ships, ranging from small corvettes to vessels that matched his largest dreadnoughts. "This is impossible," Vren whispered. "The data said they'd been spacefaring for 3 centuries. This looks like 3 millennia of development." Dr. Vane, who had insisted on accompanying the fleet despite Vren's protests, studied the sensor data with grim satisfaction. "They didn't lie about their capabilities, Grand Executor. You simply didn't believe them." A transmission came through audio and visual. The human on the screen was older than Captain Chen, his face weathered and his eyes tired. He wore a military uniform marked with symbols of rank. "I am Admiral Richard, Chair of the Earth Defense Force. You have 30 minutes to state your intentions or leave our space immediately." Vren drew himself up, trying to project the authority he'd spent his entire life cultivating. "I am Grand Executor Vren of the Valdran Empire. Your Captain Chen violated our territory and attacked our ships. You will surrender immediately and submit to judgment for these crimes." Zhao's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. Recognition, perhaps, or disappointment. "Captain Chen defended herself after your forces attempted to illegally board her vessel. She showed remarkable restraint. If you came here expecting an easy victory, you've made a terrible mistake. We came with 842 warships. You cannot stand against us." That's what the last 3 species who attacked Earth thought. Zhao leaned forward slightly. "I'm going to give you some advice, Grand Executor. We've been down this road before. We know how it ends. Please don't make us do this. Your threats are meaningless. You will surrender or be destroyed." Zhao sighed, a sound of genuine weariness. "So be it, you had your chance." The channel closed. Vren turned to his fleet commander. "All ships, attack formation. Destroy their orbital installations first, then target the homeworld itself." The Valdran fleet surged forward. 842 ships, the pride of an empire, moving in perfect coordination. It should have been glorious. Earth Defense Force responded immediately. The ships that had looked scattered suddenly moved into a formation so precise it seemed choreographed. The orbital platforms activated, revealing weapon systems that had been hidden in plain sight, and from shipyards scattered across the system, more vessels emerged. The first Valdran wave hit Earth's outer defensive perimeter and vanished in a storm of fire. Human weapons proved brutally effective. Railguns fired solid projectiles at relativistic speeds, each impact releasing energy equivalent to tactical nuclear weapons. Missiles that dodged incoming fire like they had minds of their own. Energy weapons that cut through Valdran shields like they were paper. But it was the coordination that truly terrified the Valdran. Every human ship moved in perfect sync with every other human ship. Their timing was flawless, their targeting was precise, and their tactics were clearly born from centuries of experience. The Valdran had numbers. The humans had mastery. A Valdran dreadnought exploded, its reactor breached by a railgun round. 2 cruisers collided, trying to evade missile salvos. A squadron of frigates simply vanished under concentrated fire from orbital platforms. "Return fire," Vren roared. "All ships concentrate fire on their largest vessels." The Valdran fleet responded, unleashing everything they had. Plasma bolts filled the space between fleets. Energy beams lanced out. Missiles streaked toward human targets, some hit. Human ships took damage, their shields flaring under the assault. 3 destroyers were disabled. A cruiser lost its main engines. People died defending their homeworld, but the exchange was horrifically one-sided. For every human ship damaged, 10 Valdran vessels were destroyed or crippled. The humans fought with a cold efficiency that spoke of long practice. They knew exactly where to hit, exactly how to move, exactly when to strike. Admiral Cora, commanding a battle group on the fleet's flank, watched her ships die around her, and understood with perfect clarity what Dr. Vane had tried to tell them. This wasn't a species that had gotten lucky with technology. This was a species that had been preparing for this exact scenario for their entire spacefaring history. We're not fighting explorers, she transmitted to Vren. We're fighting apex predators who learned not to hunt each other. Vren refused to accept it. Press the attack! We outnumber them. They must break eventually. But the humans didn't break. If anything, their resistance intensified. More ships emerged from hidden positions. The orbital platforms revealed additional weapon batteries. Earth's defense grid proved to have layers upon layers of redundancy. 43 minutes after the battle began, Vren's flagship took a direct hit from a railgun round. The Eternal Dominion shuddered, alarms screaming as systems failed across the ship. A second hit breached the hull, venting atmosphere. A third destroyed the main reactor, and emergency systems barely contained the explosion. Vren found himself kneeling on his command deck, sparks raining from damaged conduits, the screams of wounded crew members filling his ears. Around him, the pride of the Valdran Empire was dying. 247 ships destroyed, 381 disabled and drifting, 214 in full retreat running for their lives. Human casualties, 3 ships damaged, 127 personnel lost, 0 ships destroyed. A transmission forced its way through the Eternal Dominion's damaged systems. Admiral Zhao's face appeared, and Vren saw no triumph in those tired eyes. Only sadness. Stand down, Grand Executor. It's over. Stop the killing. We had 800 ships, Vren whispered. You had numbers. We had experience. Zhao's voice was gentle, almost kind. We're sending rescue vessels to recover your survivors. Your wounded will receive medical care. Your dead will be treated with respect. This doesn't have to end with total annihilation. Why? Vren asked. Why not destroy us completely? We came to destroy you. Because we remember what it's like to be on the losing side. Because we've fought enough wars to know that today's enemy might be tomorrow's friend. And because we're trying very hard to be better than we used to be. Human rescue ships moved through the debris field, pulling Valdran survivors from damaged vessels. Medical teams treated wounded without distinction between human and alien. The same species that had just decisively won the battle was now saving the lives of those who'd tried to kill them. Dr. Vane, pulled from the wreckage of her observation post by human Marines, watched the rescue operations with wonder. They really meant it, she said to no one in particular. Everything Captain Chen said about them trying to be better. They really meant it. On Earth, in the command center of Guardian Prime, Admiral Zhao stood at the window looking out at the stars. His second-in-command approached quietly. Sir, the media is calling it the greatest victory in human history. It's not a victory, Zhao said quietly. It's a tragedy. All those people dead because one leader couldn't accept that someone might be stronger than him. He turned away from the window. Begin preparing the diplomatic package. The Valdran are going to need help rebuilding, and we're going to give it to them. 3 months after the battle, Captain Sarah Chen returned to Valdran space. This time her ship wasn't alone. 3 diplomatic vessels accompanied the Determination, their holds filled with medical supplies, repair equipment, and the framework for what humanity hoped would be a lasting peace. The Valdran capital world looked different from orbit. Where there had once been signs of confident military power, there was now the organized chaos of a society rebuilding. The Empire's member species, sensing weakness, had begun demanding independence. Some had simply left. Others were negotiating new terms. The Valdran themselves were divided. Grand Executor Vren had been removed from power by his own council, not for losing the battle but for starting it in the first place. In his place, a coalition government struggled to hold together what remained of their 300-year-old empire. Sarah's shuttle landed at the diplomatic complex and she was met by an unexpected welcoming party. Admiral Cora stood at attention, her scales gleaming in the afternoon light. Beside her, Dr. Vane leaned on her walking stick, her ancient eyes bright with curiosity. Captain Chen, Cora said formally. Welcome to Valdran Prime. I've been asked to serve as the military liaison for these negotiations. Admiral. Sarah returned the formal greeting. I'm glad you survived the battle. As am I. Cora's expression was difficult to read. I followed my orders. I fought as I was trained to fight. And I lost more people under my command in one day than in my entire previous career. I would like very much to understand how humanity became so skilled at warfare that they can defeat overwhelming numbers while barely trying. Sarah gestured for them to walk. It's not a pleasant story, Admiral. Earth has a long and bloody history. 32 major wars in our recorded past. We spent thousands of years perfecting ways to kill each other. When we finally reached the stars, we swore we'd never be caught unprepared again. Dr. Vane spoke up, her voice thoughtful. You went to space not to conquer, but to survive. Exactly. We built our military to defend, not to attack. Every system, every weapon, every tactic is designed around one principle: protect humanity at all costs. And yet you didn't annihilate us when you had the chance, Cora said, because we're trying to be better than our history. It's not easy. Every instinct we have says to eliminate threats completely. But we're learning that the strongest defense isn't the biggest weapon. It's making friends instead of enemies. They arrived at the negotiation chamber, where representatives from Earth and what remained of the Valdran government waited. The next 3 days were spent in careful discussion, building the framework of what both sides hoped would become a lasting alliance. On the 4th day, Sarah found herself in a private meeting with former Grand Executor Vren. He'd requested the meeting through diplomatic channels, and Sarah had agreed despite her security team's protests. Vren looked older than his holographic images. His scales were dull, his posture defeated. He sat across from Sarah in a simple meeting room, 2 guards at the door. Thank you for meeting with me, Captain. You're welcome, though I'm curious why you requested this. Vren was silent for a long moment. I need to understand. When you first encountered our ships, you could have destroyed them. You had the power, but you chose not to kill. Why? Sarah considered her answer carefully. Because we've been where you are. We've been the aggressive empire, the confident military power that thought it was unbeatable. We learned differently the hard way. Millions died in our wars, Grand Executor. We carry that history with us. When we look at other species, we see ourselves, and we refuse to repeat the mistakes of our past. Even when that species tries to destroy you, especially then, it would be easy to respond to violence with overwhelming force, to crush anyone who threatens us. But that's not the galaxy we want to create. We want a future where different species can coexist, where conflicts are resolved through diplomacy instead of destruction. Vren's laugh was bitter. Noble words from the victors. Maybe, but we mean them. Sarah leaned forward. The Valdran Empire as you knew it is gone. You can't hold your tributary species through force anymore because everyone knows you're not invincible. But that doesn't have to be the end. It could be a beginning. A beginning of what? A confederation instead of an empire. Partners instead of subjects. Earth is proposing a galactic coalition, a voluntary alliance of species working together for mutual benefit. Defense, trade, scientific research, cultural exchange. The Valdran would be founding members, equal partners with humanity. Why would you trust us after we attacked you? Because holding grudges doesn't build a better future. And because we believe species can change. We did. Vren stood, walking to the window that overlooked the capital city. 300 years we ruled this sector. 300 years of certainty, of superiority. And one encounter with your species proved it was all built on sand. Not sand, Sarah corrected gently. You built something real. You maintained peace across dozens of systems. You advanced science and technology. You just did it through force instead of cooperation. Now you have a chance to do it differently. Over the following weeks, the shape of the new order became clear. The Valdran Confederacy replaced the Valdran Empire, with former tributary species invited to join as equal members or leave peacefully. Most chose to stay, not out of fear, but because the economic and defensive benefits were genuine. Earth's proposed galactic coalition gained its first members. The Valdran Confederacy signed on, followed quickly by 3 species that had been seeking protection from the chaos following the battle. More would come. Dr. Vane found herself leading a joint human-Valdran research initiative. The goal was to understand how the 2 species had developed such different technological paths. The humans were fascinated by Valdran plasma technology and gravitational manipulation. The Valdran couldn't believe human advances in materials science and artificial intelligence. "It's not that either of us is superior," Vane explained to her new research partner, a human physicist named Dr. James Park. "We simply solved different problems. You optimized for conflict and survival. We optimized for expansion and control. And now we can learn from each other," James replied. "That's what makes this exciting." Admiral Cora found unexpected, purpose-training coalition defense forces in human tactical doctrine. She'd spent her career believing in Valdran military superiority. Now she was learning that there were always better ways to fight, and more importantly, better reasons not to fight. During a training exercise, a young Valdran officer asked her a question that had been bothering many of them. "Admiral, if we learn human tactics, won't that just make us better at warfare? Isn't that the opposite of what we should want?" Cora thought about the Battle of Earth, about the friends she'd lost, about the moment she'd realized they were completely outmatched. "We learn these tactics so we never have to use them," she said finally. "The humans taught me something important. The best warriors are the ones who understand the cost of war so deeply that they'll do anything to avoid it. Strength isn't about being able to destroy your enemies. It's about being strong enough that you don't need to." 6 months after the battle, Sarah Chen stood in the observation dome of the newly completed coalition headquarters, built in neutral space between Earth and the Valdran systems. Representatives from 7 species moved through the halls below, beginning the slow work of building something new. Admiral Zhao joined her, 2 cups of coffee in his hands. He offered her one. "Thinking deep thoughts?" he asked. "Thinking about responsibility," Sarah replied. "We came out here looking for friends. Instead, we became the strongest military power in this region of space. That's not what we wanted. No, but it's what we got. The question is what we do with it. We could become exactly what we defeated, an empire in all but name. Species joining us not because they want to, but because they're afraid not to." Zhao nodded slowly. "That's the danger. That's what keeps me up at night. But I look down there and I see Valdran working alongside humans, former enemies sharing research, species that were at war 3 months ago now building something together. That gives me hope. Hope isn't a strategy. No, but it's a start." He sipped his coffee. "The Secretary General is convening a meeting next week. Long-range sensors have detected 3 more spacefaring civilizations. They're going to be deciding how we approach them. Carefully, I hope. Very carefully. We're strong enough to survive most threats now. The question is whether we're wise enough not to become one." Sarah watched a Valdran and a human engineer working together on a display screen below, debugging code for the station's defense grid. 6 months ago, they'd been shooting at each other. Now they were building together. "You know what the scariest part is?" she said quietly. "What's that?" "We got lucky. The Valdran were aggressive but not genocidal. They valued their own people's lives enough to surrender when they were beaten. What happens when we meet a species that doesn't stop? One that fights to the last ship, the last soldier, the last breath?" "Then we do what we've always done," Zhao said grimly. "We survive, and we try very hard to remember why we're fighting in the first place." Below them, in the Coalition Council chamber, delegates were gathering for their daily meeting. Jaratal moved quickly through the vast halls of the ancestral archives. Her 4-fingered hands carried ancient data crystals that glowed with a soft blue light. The archives stretched for miles under the surface of Nyza Prime, the capital, world of the Galactic Council. For 12 cycles she had searched these halls, looking for proof that the stories were true. Most of her people thought she was wasting her time. The stories of humans were just that, stories. Myths to scare young ones into good behavior. Be good, or the humans will come. Parents would tell their children across 100 worlds. But Jaratal knew better. The patterns were too consistent. The references too specific across too many separate cultures. 27 species made up the Galactic Council, and every single one had some version of the human myth. "Find anything interesting today, archivist?" The voice belonged to Trillian, a science officer who often worked late in the archives. Her skin was pale green, and her large eyes blinked slowly as she spoke. Maybe, Jaratal said. She did not want to share too much. Trillian was one of the biggest doubters. Just some old star charts. Trillian made a sound like small bells, her species' way of showing disbelief. Still chasing your humans? When will you accept they are just stories? Jaratal ignored her and continued to her private study room. Inside, she placed the crystals into her reader. The room filled with light as star maps appeared in the air around her. She had found something big this time. Coordinates. Actual coordinates that matched all the clues from the ancient texts. According to her research, humans came from a planet called Earth, in a system with 1 yellow star and 8 planets. The third planet from the star was their home, and now, for the first time, she had possible coordinates. As she worked through the night, a message arrived on her communication device. It was from her friend at the long-range sensor station. Strange. Signals detected from Sector 87B. Unusual patterns, nothing like our technology. Thought you might be interested. Jaratal checked her maps again. Sector 87B was exactly where her coordinates pointed. Her hearts beat faster. The next day, she requested an emergency meeting with the council elders. They rarely listened to her, but this was too important to ignore. The council chamber was a huge room with seats for representatives of all 27 species. The elders sat at the highest level, looking down at Jaratal as she stood in the center. "Honorable elders," she began, "I have found evidence that the humans may not be myth. They may be real, and they may be reaching out into our space." A wave of whispers filled the chamber. Elder Koss, a tall being with skin like polished stone, stood up. "Archivist Jaratal, you have brought these theories to us before. What new evidence do you have?" She activated her data pad and the star maps appeared above the council floor. These coordinates appear in texts from 12 different member species, all pointing to the same region of space. And now, we have detected unusual transmissions from that exact location. The council scientist Mavreen stood up. "Those signals are simply natural phenomena. Space is full of strange energy patterns. Natural phenomena don't use mathematical sequences as a basis for communication," Jaratal replied. "These signals follow prime number sequences, a clear sign of intelligence." Elder Voss, the oldest member of the council, leaned forward. Unlike the others, he had always been more open to Jaratal's research. "If what you say is true, what action do you suggest we take?" "Send an exploratory vessel," she said. "We need to know what's out there." The debate lasted for hours. Many feared what they might find. The myths of humans were often frightening. Tales of beings who fought enormous wars, who split atoms for weapons, who spread across stars with unstoppable determination. In the end, curiosity won over fear. A small exploratory vessel named Star-Seeker was sent to investigate the source of the signals. For 3 days, the council waited. Jaratal barely slept, checking for updates every few hours. On the 4th day, a transmission came through. The captain of the Starseeker appeared on the main screen in the council chamber. His voice was shaking. "Council, we have visual contact with objects moving through space at the edge of Sector 87B. They are ships unlike any design we have ever seen. They are enormous." The transmission showed blurry images of massive vessels moving in formation. "We are attempting to establish communication protocols," the captain continued. "Wait. Something is happening. They've detected us. Multiple ships are changing course toward our position." The screen suddenly filled with static. "Starseeker, respond," Elder Koss called out. "Starseeker!" There was no answer. The chamber fell silent. Then, the main communications array lit up. A signal was coming in, not from the Starseeker, but from the unknown vessels. The Council's translation systems worked to decode the message. After a few moments, words appeared on the screen. "This is Admiral William Carter of the United Earth Fleet. We have detected your scout ship and wish to establish peaceful contact. Please respond." The council chamber erupted in chaos. Jaratal stood frozen in place, her theory proven true in the most dramatic way possible. Elder Voss called for order. "It seems," he said when the room quieted, "that we must prepare to meet the humans. They are no longer myth." As the council debated what to do next, more sensor data arrived. The images now clearly showed hundreds of ships, an armada of massive vessels moving with precise coordination. The lead ship alone was larger than the biggest council battlecruiser. Jaratal studied the images with wonder and fear. The myths spoke of human determination and their capacity for both creation and destruction. What would their arrival mean for the council? In her research room later that day, she sorted through her oldest texts. One passage now seemed especially important. They come from a harsh world that taught them to never surrender. They reach for stars not with one hand, but with thousands. When humans arrive, the galaxy will never be the same. Outside her window, the capital city buzzed with news of the human fleet. Citizens gathered in public spaces looking up at the sky with wonder and fear. The myth had become reality. Humanity had arrived. Admiral Carter stood on the bridge of the Defiance, Earth's flagship. Captain Alan Brooks and Dr. Elizabeth Reeves joined him as they watched the council planet on their main screen. "Do you think they'll respond peacefully?" Brooks asked. Carter nodded slowly. "Let's hope so. We came looking for neighbors, not enemies." As the Earth Armada held position at the edge of council space, both sides prepared for a first contact that would change the course of galactic history forever. The Council Defense Fleet gathered at the border of their space. Commander Zeltor watched the human ships with growing concern. He had never seen vessels so large or so many in one place. The Council had always believed itself to be the greatest power in the galaxy. Now that belief was being tested. "Status report," he ordered, his four eyes blinking rapidly in the dim light of the command center. "The human fleet has not moved since our last scan," his second officer replied. "They maintain position just outside our border. Their weapon systems appear active but not targeted." Zeltor nodded slowly. The humans were being careful. They could have pushed forward, but instead they waited. It was not what the myths had led him to expect. On the main council world, an emergency session continued for the second day straight. Jaratal had been called to present everything she knew about humans. Elder Voss searched through the most ancient records for guidance. "Here," Voss said suddenly, his voice echoing in the chamber. "The first contact protocols, written 10,000 years ago and never used." The room grew quiet as Voss read from the ancient text. "If humans are ever encountered, approach with respect and caution. They are proud but can be reasonable. Show strength but never threaten. Speak truth but not all truths at once." Elder Koss stood up. "These protocols assume the humans are more powerful than us. I do not accept that." "Look at the images again," Jaratal said, pointing to the screen showing the human fleet. "Count their ships, measure their size. We must be realistic." In the end, the council decided to establish communication but keep their defense fleet ready. They would follow the ancient protocols while preparing for the worst. Aboard the Earth flagship Defiance, Admiral Carter received the news with relief. "They've agreed to talk," he told his officers. "They're sending coordinates for a communication link." Lieutenant Grace Wilson, the fleet's best communication specialist, stepped forward. "Sir, I've been studying their transmissions. I think I can respond in their main language." Carter nodded. "Good work, Lieutenant. Get it ready." Dr. Elizabeth Reeves joined them on the bridge. "Admiral, I've put together basic cultural briefings on each council species based on our long-range observations. The dominant species appears to be called the Nizarians." "What should we know about them?" Captain Brooks asked. "They value knowledge and precision," Reeves explained. "They're cautious by nature, and according to their transmissions, they've been telling stories about humans for thousands of years." Carter raised an eyebrow. "Stories? What kind of stories?" "From what we can tell," Reeves said, "not very flattering ones. They seem to think of us as dangerous." Jack Phillips, the civilian ambassador assigned to the mission, laughed softly. "Well, they're not entirely wrong, are they? Humanity has a complex history." "That's why you're here, Ambassador," Carter replied. "To show them our better nature." At the agreed time, the communication link activated. The bridge crew of the Defiance found themselves looking at the council representatives. Several different alien species stood in a semicircle with Commander Zeltor and Elder Voss in the center. For a moment, no one spoke. Two civilizations, separated by vast distances and time, finally faced each other. Admiral Carter stepped forward. "This is Admiral William Carter of the United Earth Fleet. On behalf of humanity, I extend greetings of peace and friendship." The aliens visibly reacted when Lieutenant Wilson translated his words into their language. Elder Voss stepped forward, his ancient face showing surprise. "You speak our tongue," he said in a slow, deep voice. "We have been studying your transmissions," Wilson replied, continuing the translation. "We wish to understand and be understood." Commander Zeltor moved to stand beside Elder Voss. His 4 eyes narrowed as he studied the humans. You actually exist," he said, his voice barely controlled. "The myths were true." "I assure you, Commander, we are quite real," Carter replied with a slight smile. "And we've been looking for neighbors for a very long time." The conversation continued carefully. Both sides shared basic information about their civilizations. The Council learned that humanity had expanded across hundreds of star systems over 5 centuries. The humans learned that the Council had existed for thousands of years but expanded much more slowly. "Why have you come to our space?" Elder Voss asked directly. His stone-like face showed no emotion, but his tone carried suspicion. "Exploration," Ambassador Phillips answered. "Humanity has always been driven to discover what lies beyond the next horizon. We detected signs of your civilization and wished to establish contact." "With an armada?" Commander Zeltor asked. "We didn't know what we would find," Admiral Carter explained. "In our history, first contacts have not always gone well. We came prepared for any possibility but hoping for peace." The Council representatives discussed among themselves in their own language, not realizing the humans could understand much of what they said. "They matched the descriptions perfectly," one whispered. "The ancient warnings were correct." "But they have not attacked," another pointed out. "Perhaps the warnings were incomplete." Elder Voss turned back to the humans. "We propose a face-to-face meeting. A neutral location can be prepared." Carter looked at his team. Ambassador Phillips nodded slightly. "We accept," Carter replied. "We will send a small delegation to meet with yours." After the communication ended, Captain Brooks turned to Carter. "Do you think we can trust them?" "They're scared," Carter said, "but curious. Not so different from us, really." As preparations began for the meeting, Dr. Reeves and Lieutenant Wilson worked together to learn more about the Council species. "It's fascinating," Reeves said as she studied the data. "They've built a stable, multi-species civilization with very little internal conflict. We could learn from them." "And they could learn from us," Wilson replied. "They've barely explored a tenth of the galaxy. Their technology is advanced in some ways but limited in others." Ambassador Phillips joined them. "Our goal is cooperation, not competition. Remember that when we meet them." On the Council side, Jaratal helped prepare a space station for the meeting. Her life's work had been validated, but now she worried about what would happen next. "The humans are sending their own ambassador," Elder Voss told her. "You will be part of our delegation." "Me?" Jaratal was surprised. "Why?" "Because you understood them before anyone else did," Voss replied. "You saw truth where others saw only myth. We need that insight now." As the human shuttle approached the meeting station, both sides prepared for a moment that would change the course of galactic history. Humanity and the Council were about to truly meet for the first time, face to face. The future of two civilizations hung in the balance. The neutral space station hung in the darkness between the human fleet and the Council ships. It was an old Council research station, quickly converted for this historic meeting. Inside, two groups faced each other across a large round table. The Po human delegation was led by Ambassador Daniel Morris, a tall man with gray at his temples. Admiral Carter stood beside him with Dr. Reeves, Lieutenant Wilson, and Ryan Bennett, a historian who specialized in Earth's expansion into space. The council delegation included Elder Voss, Commander Zeltor, Jaratal, and several others, including council scientist Clova, who had studied the myths of humans for many years. "Welcome to Council Space," Elder Voss began. His voice was translated by devices on the table. "This meeting is historic for both our peoples." Ambassador Morris nodded. "We thank you for this opportunity. Humanity has long wondered if we were alone in the universe. Now we know we are not." Clova leaned forward. "How is it possible that you exist exactly as our myths described? Your appearance, your ships, even your manner of speaking, all match our oldest texts." Ryan Bennett, the historian, looked confused. "Your texts? How long have your people known about humans?" "For thousands of years," Jaratal answered. She activated a display showing ancient writings and images. "These records date back to the early days of the Council. They describe a species called humans who would one day emerge from a distant part of the galaxy." The humans exchanged surprised looks. Dr. Reeves studied the images carefully. "These are remarkably accurate," she said. "But humanity only began space exploration 500 years ago. We've only been able to travel beyond our local star cluster for 300 years. Elder Voss nodded slowly. "The records also say that humans were visited long ago before they reached the stars. The visitors left with warnings about human potential." Admiral Carter's expression hardened. "Visitors? To Earth? We have no records of such contact." "It would have been before your recorded history," Jaratal explained. "Perhaps 10,000 of your Earth years ago." Lieutenant Wilson translated some of the ancient text. "It says here, 'They are dangerous because they never stop trying. They will either destroy themselves or spread across the stars like fire.'" This was written 8,000 years ago. A tense silence filled the room. Ambassador Morris broke it with a careful smile. "It seems we have much history to share," he said. "Perhaps we can begin by telling you our story, as we know it." For the next few hours, Ryan Bennett described humanity's journey to the stars. He told of Earth's early struggles, the near destruction during the resource wars, and the eventual unification that led to their expansion. "We almost did destroy ourselves," Bennett admitted. "Multiple times, but each time we pulled back from the edge." Clova interrupted him. "But this contradicts our oldest texts. The ancients predicted your species would destroy itself before reaching the stars." Bennett paused, then responded, "We nearly did. But perhaps what your ancients couldn't predict was our capacity to learn from our mistakes." The council members discussed this among themselves. Commander Zeltor still looked suspicious, but Elder Voss seemed thoughtful. "Tell us about your expansion," Voss asked. "How many worlds do humans inhabit now?" "We have settled over 200 planets across 87 star systems," Admiral Carter answered. "And we have outposts in another 100 systems." This news shocked the council delegation. Their own expansion had been much slower, with only 52 worlds settled across 39 systems, despite their head start of thousands of years. "How is this possible?" Commander Zeltor demanded. "Such rapid expansion should have depleted your resources or led to collapse." Dr. Reeves stepped in. "We developed efficient terraforming methods early in our expansion, and our social structures evolved to support distant colonies while maintaining unity." As the meeting continued, both sides shared more about their histories and cultures. The humans were fascinated by the Council's long-term stability. The Council members were amazed by humanity's rapid technological development. During a break, in the talks, Ambassador Morris spoke privately with Admiral Carter. "They're afraid of us," Morris said quietly. "Their myths painted us as a potential threat, and our fleet and expansion history aren't easing those fears." Carter nodded. "But they're also curious, especially that archivist, Jaratal. She's been studying us her whole life without even knowing if we existed." When the talks resumed, Jaratal asked a question that had bothered her for years. "In Our myths, humans are described as both builders and destroyers. Your history seems to confirm this. How do you manage these opposing tendencies? Ambassador Morris looked at his team before answering. We don't always manage them well, he admitted. But we try to learn from our mistakes. Our worst conflicts taught us the value of cooperation. Our near disasters showed us the importance of caution. As the day went on, the mood in the room slowly shifted. The initial tension began to ease as both sides found common ground. They discovered shared values, curiosity, the desire for knowledge, and the will to survive against the challenges of space. Before the meeting ended, Elder Voss made an unexpected proposal. We would like to establish a permanent diplomatic connection between our peoples, and perhaps in time, trade and cultural exchange. The human delegation was surprised by this progress. Ambassador Morris quickly agreed. We would welcome such a relationship. This could be the beginning of a new era for both our civilizations. As they prepared to depart, Jaratal approached Dr. Reeves. All my life, I believed humans were real when others thought you were myths. Now I wonder what other myths might be true. Dr. Reeves smiled. That's the thing about myths. They often contain kernels of truth wrapped in layers of story. Unknown to both delegations, a small device hidden beneath the meeting table had recorded everything. Far away, in a dark corner of the galaxy, a signal was sent. The message was simple. The separation has failed. The humans and the Council have made contact. The recipients of this message had waited thousands of years for this moment. Now they would need to act. The plans they had set in motion long ago were unraveling. Humanity was not supposed to survive, and certainly not supposed to meet the Council. As the human and Council ships departed the meeting station, new friendship beginning to form between them, neither suspected that ancient eyes were watching, and ancient minds were planning. The myths that had brought them together might soon reveal a darker truth. 2 weeks after the first meeting, relations between humans and the Council seemed to be improving. Small delegations from both sides visited each other's ships. Cultural information was exchanged. Plans were made for deeper cooperation, but not everyone welcomed this new friendship. On the Council battleship Guardian, Commander Zeltor met with a group of military leaders from various Council species. The mood was tense. The elders are moving too quickly, Zeltor said. These humans appeared from nowhere with a fleet that could destroy us, and were inviting them into our territory. An officer named Drell nodded. His species had skin like polished metal, and his eyes glowed red in the dim light. The ancient warnings were clear. Humans cannot be trusted. They will take everything we have. What do you suggest? Asked another officer. The peace talks continue. Ambassador Morris and Elder Voss have already signed initial agreements. Drell leaned forward. If we cannot convince the Council to act, then we must act ourselves, for the safety of all our worlds. Meanwhile, on the human flagship Defiance, Admiral Carter received troubling news from Lieutenant Wilson. We've intercepted communications from a faction within the Council military, she reported. They're planning something against us. I can't translate all the details, but the word elimination was used several times. Carter's face darkened. Alert Security Chief Linda Martinez. Double the guards on all diplomatic meetings. And tell Vice Admiral Olivia Reed to put the fleet on standby alert. Do we tell Ambassador Morris? Wilson asked. Not yet, Carter decided. Let's get more information first. I don't want to disrupt the talks if this is just a small group of dissenters. But the threat was real. That night, as human engineers worked with Council technicians on a joint communications project, Drell and his followers put their plan into action. Disguised as maintenance workers, they entered the Defiance through an authorized shuttle. Their target was the ship's main reactor. If they could cause an overload, the humans' flagship would be destroyed. In the chaos that followed, they would push for war. Security Chief Martinez noticed something wrong when the maintenance team took an unexpected route. Computer, show me shuttle bay visitors, she ordered, watching from the security center. The list appeared on her screen. Everything looked normal until she checked the council personnel files. Wait, these two weren't scheduled for tonight's exchange. She immediately sent guards to investigate and alerted Admiral Carter. The security team found the saboteurs near the reactor control room. A brief firefight broke out. 2 humans were injured and one of Drell's followers was killed. Drell himself was captured. News of the attempted attack spread quickly through both fleets. On the council side, most leaders were horrified. Elder Voss immediately contacted Ambassador Morris to apologize. This action does not represent the council, Voss insisted. The criminals will be punished according to our laws. But damage had been done. General Frank Cooper, who had always been cautious about the council, urged immediate military action. This proves they can't be trusted, Cooper told Admiral Carter in a heated meeting. We should pull back our diplomatic teams and prepare for conflict. Admiral Carter disagreed. One small group doesn't represent their entire civilization. Look, at our own history, we've had extremists too. Breaking off talks now could lead to the very war these saboteurs wanted. As they argued, Vice Admiral Reed entered with urgent news. Long-range sensors have detected something strange at the edge of this sector, a massive energy signature, unlike anything we've seen before. Both fleets detected the same readings. An emergency joint session was called between human leadership and council representatives. High Elder Voss brought ancient records to the meeting. His hands trembled as he activated a holographic display. These energy signatures match those in our oldest records, he said gravely. They belong to the Harbingers, those who warned us about humanity. The room fell silent. Admiral Carter stood. Then it seems your ancients and our new enemy are one and the same. Jaratal studied the readings carefully. The ancient texts say the Harbingers would return if humanity ever reached the stars and contacted the council. They claimed they would restore the proper order. What does that mean? Ambassador Morris asked. Destruction, Elder Voss replied simply. They believed humans would upset the balance of power in the galaxy. They tried to prevent this by spreading myths about you among our people, ensuring we would fear humans if we ever encountered them. Admiral Carter's expression hardened. They didn't just spread myths. Based on the timeline, they may have visited Earth during our prehistoric era. They might have tried to influence our development as well. The captured saboteur Drell was brought to the meeting under guard. He laughed when he saw the sensor readings. You fools, he said. The Harbingers have returned. They will cleanse the galaxy of the human infection. You knew about this? Commander Zeltor demanded, shocked by the betrayal. Some of us kept the true faith, Drell replied. We maintained contact with the Harbingers through the ages. We helped prepare for their return. As Drell was taken away, the human and council leaders faced a terrible choice. We face extinction separately or survival together, Ambassador Morris said. The choice seems clear. On the main display, the sensor readings showed the approaching force growing larger. Hundreds of ships, then thousands, far more than either the human fleet or the council forces could match alone. Admiral Carter turned to Commander Zeltor. Your weapons technology differs from ours. Together, we might have a chance. Zeltor hesitated only briefly before nodding. I will order all council ships to prepare for joint defense operations. As both fleets began urgent preparations, Dr. Reeves and Jaratal worked together to translate more of the ancient texts, looking for any information that might help against the Harbingers. According to this passage, Jaratal said, the Harbingers visited many worlds, guiding their development to create a stable, predictable galaxy. But humanity was too unpredictable, Reeves finished. We didn't develop along their planned path. Outside, the combined fleet of human and council ships began to form a defensive line. Engineers from both civilizations worked frantically to integrate their technologies. Officers exchanged tactical information and established joint command protocols. The myth of humanity had brought fear. Now, the reality of humanity brought hope. The Harbingers were coming, determined to enforce their ancient plan. But they would find not divided enemies but united resistance. The greatest test for both civilizations was about to begin. The combined fleet of human and council ships formed a defensive line at the edge of the star system. Engineers worked day and night to integrate their different technologies. Admiral Carter and Commander Zeltor established a joint command center on the Defiance. The Harbinger fleet will arrive in 12 hours, Vice Admiral Reed reported. Our latest scans show over 2,000 vessels, many larger than anything in our fleet. Commander Zeltor studied the tactical display. Even together, we are outnumbered, 3-1. Carter nodded grimly. Then we need an advantage beyond numbers. In one of the Defiance's science labs, engineer Peter Jones worked with Council scientists. They focused on adapting Council shield technology to work with human weapon systems. If we can synchronize the phase variants, Jones explained, our energy weapons should be able to penetrate their shields at precise moments. The Council scientist, beside him, made adjustments to the equations. This might work, but our timing would need to be perfect. Elsewhere on the ship, Commander Susan Wright led a tactical planning session with officers from both fleets. The Harbingers will expect us to fight separately, Wright explained. Their strategy will be to divide us. We need to surprise them with complete integration of our forces. Council Fleet Leader Traz nodded in agreement. My faster scout ships could protect your heavier battleships. Your point defense systems could shield our carriers. As preparations continued, Dr. Reeves and Jaratal made a breakthrough in translating the ancient records. Look at this, Jaratal said excitedly. The Harbinger's ships are connected by a quantum network. They function as a single organism. Reeves studied the diagrams. That's why they're so coordinated, but it also means they have a central command node. They rushed to bring this information to Admiral Carter. The Admiral immediately called a meeting with the senior command staff. According to these records, Carter explained, the Harbingers operate as a hive mind. Their ships are powerful individually, but their real strength comes from perfect coordination. Can we disrupt this network? Asked Vice Admiral Reed. Jaratal nodded. Possibly. The ancient texts mention a specific frequency that could interfere with their communications. Engineer Jones leaned forward. If we could locate their command ship and hit it with a targeted pulse at that frequency, we could blind them temporarily, Carter finished. It won't destroy them, but it might give us an opening. A new plan began to form. The main fleet would engage the Harbingers in a conventional battle. Meanwhile, a small, fast strike team would locate the command ship and deploy the disruptive pulse. Captain Brooks volunteered to lead the strike team. The Council stealth technology combined with our pulse weapons would give us our best chance. Carter agreed reluctantly. Take our fastest ship, the Scout, and the best pilots from both fleets. As the hours counted down, Ambassador Morris and Elder Voss addressed the combined crews. For thousands of years, the Harbingers kept our civilizations apart, Voss said. They feared what we might become together, Morris continued. Today we show them they were right to fear us, not because we are destructive, but because together we are stronger than their control. The Scout departed quietly, using Council stealth systems to slip away from the fleet. Captain Brooks and his mixed crew of humans and Council species began their dangerous mission. 3 hours later, the Harbinger fleet arrived. Their ships filled the view screens, massive, crystalline structures that glowed with internal energy. At their center was a vessel twice the size of the others. The command ship, Carter said quietly. A transmission came through on all channels. The voice spoke in both human and Council languages simultaneously. This is Ancient Commander Vex. You have defied the natural order. Separation was for your own good. Surrender now, and some may be preserved. Admiral Carter exchanged looks with Commander Zeltor. Both nodded. This is Admiral William Carter of the United Earth Fleet and Commander Zeltor of the Council Defense Force. We respectfully decline your offer. The battle began instantly. The Harbinger ships moved with perfect coordination, focusing fire on key vessels. But the combined human Council fleet fought with unexpected harmony. Council shields protected human ships as they delivered devastating blows. Human point defense systems cleared paths for Council strike craft. Behind the lines, Dr. Reeves and Jaratal continued to translate more ancient texts, looking for any additional advantage. The Harbingers believe in absolute order, Jaratal. Ritos, they cannot comprehend unpredictable behavior. Reeves looked up. Then let's be unpredictable. They sent new tactical suggestions to the fleet. Ships began moving in patterns that defied conventional strategy, retreating when they should advance, splitting into smaller groups, then reuniting unexpectedly. On the bridge of the Defiance, Admiral Carter watched as confusion began to appear in the Harbinger fleet movements. It's working, Vice Admiral Reed said. Their formations are breaking down, but the advantage was temporary. The Harbingers quickly adapted, and their superior numbers began to tell. One by one, human and council, ships were disabled or destroyed. Where is the scout? Carter muttered, watching the battle turn against them. At that moment, Captain Brooks and his crew were approaching the Harbinger command ship. Using a combination of council stealth technology and the cover of battle, they had managed to get within striking distance. Charging the pulse weapon, reported a council officer. Ready in 30 seconds. Brooks watched the massive command ship through the view screen. Once we fire, we'll be detected immediately. Be ready for emergency evasion. On the command ship, Ancient Commander Vex received reports of the battle. You were meant to destroy each other, not unite, he said to his lieutenants. This defies probability. The scout fired its pulse weapon. A wave of energy struck the command ship, penetrating its shields thanks to Engineer Jones's modifications. The quantum network connecting the Harbinger fleet flickered and destabilized. Back on the Defiance, Carter saw the effect immediately. All ships attack pattern Omega. Target their disoriented vessels. Without their perfect coordination, the Harbinger ships became vulnerable. Some fired at their own allies in confusion. Others stopped moving entirely. Ancient Commander Vex struggled to regain control. Re-establish the network. This is impossible. Captain Brooks's voice came through on the Defiance's communication system. Admiral, the pulse worked, but they're recovering quickly. We need to strike now. Carter gave the order. All ships converge on the command vessel. Everything we've got. The combined fleet focused its firepower on the Harbinger command ship. Council energy weapons opened gaps in its shields. Human missiles and railguns tore through its hull. Finally, a series of explosions rippled across its surface. As the command ship began to break apart, the rest of the Harbinger fleet fell into disarray. Some ships retreated immediately. Others fought on, but without coordination or strategy. The battle wasn't over, but the tide had turned. The myth of humanity's destructive nature had become reality for the Harbingers, but not in the way they had feared. It wasn't humanity alone that defeated them, but humanity and the Council together. 6 months later, a new galactic assembly chamber opened. Admiral Carter and Jeratel stood side by side as the human and Council flags were raised together. They called us a myth, Carter said quietly. Jeratel nodded. And now you're our greatest allies. Perhaps that is the true nature of myths. Not falsehoods, but truths we aren't yet ready to comprehend. In deep space, monitoring stations tracked the Harbinger retreat, but encrypted transmissions suggested they were regrouping. The myth of humanity had ended, but humanity's story among the stars was just beginning.